Alright, now that I've got my general sculpt done, it'd be nice to have a little bit of texture and color to this. So, on a short note, when you're doing a sculpt, like all these little brushes do something different, and we're just going over a quick basic idea, right? So, I could actually choose my sculpt brush and then choose one of these other textures, oops, that's a stencil, in the stamp. And I literally can go in, and depending on how dense it is and how strong, oops, that is way too high. Let's tone that down, which is, remember, the letter M, as in Mary, and left mouse. And now, so you see I can add texture. I can adjust whatever that stamp is. It's literally going, stamping it. So the stamp spacing, I could pull that out so it's more spread apart to add some texture to it. I could also randomize it so that it's randomizing its rotation and it's randomizing its placement, and even if it's light or heavy. So I literally could just go in and just start to give it a little bit of a bumpiness to it. I can also do this just strictly through a bump map. This is actually sculpting this detail in. And if I wanted to, instead of popping out, I want to push it in, I hold down Control and it's going to invert and it's going to put that in. I'm just going to add a little bit just so you can see. And that's just choosing one of the patterns that are there. If I chose a different pattern, I would get a different look. It's kind of blurry because this isn't super high res, believe it or not. But it's giving me a nice little, at least a little bit of a bump inside of there, just so you can see. But what I want to do is I want to texture it. So I'm going to go to my paint. And I'm going to create a paint layer. And we'll call this one cake for the cake part of the donut. And I could use a 1K texture. If your machine is running low on space and stuff, you might want to use a 2K. Or if it's, excuse me, a 1K. If it's pretty powerful, you can use a 2K texture. Let's just do a 1K just to see. Actually, I'll do a 2K just so you can see what it looks like. And we're going to do it in the diffuse. And yeah, we'll use a TIFF. Boop. Now, once I have that, I can go to my paint tools. I can choose my paintbrush, and I literally could just paint on it. The properties, I could change the color to something like a tannish color and paint that in, but that doesn't look very realistic. I could even paint with one of these patterns, right? And just use that as a stamp and stamp that in. But every time I start switching and going to a different tool and different things, I have to reset and change how I want this stuff to be. If I wanted to paint or sculpt on two sides simultaneously, I would mirror it so that when I'm painting on one, it paints on the other. But even that still isn't giving me the look that I want. So I'm going to turn that off. I'm going to switch this back to white. And I'm going to turn off the stamp. And I'm going to go to stencil, and I'm going to add a stencil of an image. Now I've already done it, but I'm just going to show you how. I've saved an image that I downloaded off the internet of a donut. This guy right here. And I'm going to use that to texture my donut. So I downloaded this from the internet. I'm going to choose and put that in the stencil and hit open. And when I do, I'd hit open normally. You could see it's already in there. So when I click on that, lo and behold, there is my stencil. Now you notice it's grayscale, and that's because I'm on the paintbrush. So if I paint it, it's going to paint it in, but it's not going to really do it right. I need projection. And now I can actually, this is giving me this menu, I can hold down the letter S, left mouse, excuse me, S, right mouse button to change the scale, middle mouse to actually pan it. And now I could actually use this texture and literally start painting it in. Look at that. Now I will have to kind of move things around so I can get it where I want it. I'm not going to worry about the cake part getting on the frosting because we're going to paint over that. But I may have to move things around a little bit to get the texture that I want where I want it. And you can see I'm just projecting this texture onto the donut itself. I just have to be careful about it, where it's going. And if I make a mistake, it's totally alright because I'll fix it. If I want to hide this, I press Q. And let's see what it looks like so far. It's not too bad. Press Q again to turn it back on. Once again, I'm not really worried too much about it getting on the frosting. We're going to paint on top of that. I just want to make sure it blends in there. And I also want to get that inside. Just going around projecting that everywhere we need it. Press Q, rotate around, see if you missed anything. And I think that looks pretty good. So the next phase will actually be doing the frosting.